sharing our stories connects us. Listen and be connected. Join us for the conversation meeting weekly at the intersection of community and culture. Hosted by Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter. And here we are again. Joey, can you believe it? It's another Wednesday. We'd like to say welcome to everybody who's just joining us here this Wednesday on WMNF 88.5 right here in Tampa, WMNF.org. From anywhere you happen to be in the world, adjusting for the time zone change, of course. My name is Mario Nunez. As always, on Wednesday at just about 12:06 when we take the microphones, I'm seated alongside my broadcast partner.
Good afternoon. Joe King Carter here.
Joe King Carter is in the house. Joey, it's been the week of all weeks, has it not?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Lots of stuff.
This is usually where I ask you, man, how was your week this week, Joe? But I know how your week was because we're close and we talk all the time. So, why don't you share with everybody who's listening how your week might have been?
Well, my week was profoundly steeped in gratitude for everything that I have and is happening. And then it's also that the world is on fire, it seems, at the same time. So how do you deal with that?
How do you hold those two thoughts in your head at the same time? How do you, as they say, square that circle? Maybe our guest today, who we'll introduce to you in just a couple of minutes, might have some insight as to what we can do to navigate these awful feelings of frustration and disappointment and loss. Loss being the most profound this week, as we talked about last week.
Yes.
We had lost a couple of members of our community, one that has a great deal to do with the history of this station and us being perhaps even sitting at these microphones, Mr. Rob Lorai, and then, of course, Mr. Tony Saladino, who will be interred this Saturday. His service will be Saturday morning. And then, of course, Thursday, the day after we get off the air, the other shoe dropped. And can you mention something about that?
Well, of course, Andy Hughes, known to many in the community. If you did not know Andy, it was your loss. Just a wonderful guy. He was the curator of the special collections at USF, historian, a writer, and author of numerous books, including the co-authoring of the Cuban Sandwich book, which has become the definitive explanation of how all that happened. And for those of us who knew and loved Andy, this was a tragic moment. Difficult to deal with.
And it's difficult indeed.
Yes.
And it still grabs us if we think about it too deeply, too profoundly.
Yes.
We're still sitting here scratching our heads. But Andy, we just as we've been talking, Joey, you and I, that we hope that he realized how much he was appreciated. Number one, how much he was connected to our community, even though he wasn't born here, and he was raised across the bay in Clearwater. Tampa was his home, and he was our go-to historian, as it were, and you're quite a historian yourself, but I hasten to guess that Andy was a little further down the road, only because he had the acumen. You have the acumen as well, but he had the energy.
Well, let me just say this, that I have, whenever I wanted to bird dog out a factoid that had to do with the history of Tampa and Ybor City, let's say I came across something that I'm trying to determine how many of those where this happened, or how did that happen, or I only had a few sources to go to, and beyond the library and the internet, and I had called Andy and had him. He is the source. A little easier to reach Andy than Gary Moramino, but the point is that Andy was my go-to guy if I had a question about something, and he had a very matter-of-fact way of saying, "Oh, this is what happened." He was really a spectacular person in that sense that historians, which I have an art history degree, and they can be a little pompous, they can be a little esoteric, and they can be a little difficult, and they know so much, and they have to drop down to your level to answer your question,
so to speak.
And Andy wasn't like that. Andy had the common touch of being the guy that you could just talk to about it, and he was always there to help everyone that he could help. And you know what? We're going to miss you, buddy.
Terribly. Okay, that's Andy Hughes. who left us way too soon at the age of 51 last Thursday. So today we're going to be talking to Mr. Derek McCarron. Joe will introduce him here and let him introduce himself in just a moment or two. And Derek, again, I got to say something right up at the top, and this is about a guest that we had in the show not too long ago. That would be Alfred Goldberg, right? Alfred Goldberg, who hopefully is listening now. We're giving you your flowers, Alfredo, and we thank you for being there to always pick up the phone when we call, because sometimes when we get our schedule upside down and inside out and we call Alfred is there with a quick response, and he also is responsible for bringing Derek McCarron to us today. And it's very timely, very prescient. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joe. And Joe, do what you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mario. So, good morning, Derek. Good afternoon, Derek. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Joe. Good afternoon, Mario.
Thank you, sir.
Derek, you are someone who's schooled in the world of psychology. We're going to get to that. But before we do, we're going to get to know you a little bit personally. Where did you grow up, Derek?
I grew up on the west coast of Scotland, a city called Glasgow.
And would you be able to deny that? I think that if anybody spoke to you, they'd immediately know that you were probably from Scotland.
I might break under questioning.
That's good. Well,
very good.
If it's not Scots, right? That's right. So, you grew up in what kind of community and what kind of home? Where do you have siblings?
I have one older brother who currently lives in Lakeland. And both my parents live in Newport Richie, but predominantly working class kind of home.
And you all relocated to Florida?
Not originally, I bet.
Not initially.
Yeah. So you grew up in Glasgow, and you're kind of saying maybe a working class neighborhood kind of place.
Yeah.
And growing up, what kind of kid were you? How would you see yourself? If we give you categories.
Yes, and I'll tag along with that. What kind of things would you do in Glasgow to entertain yourself? We know what we did here with proper climate and, always digging in the dirt and running around. What were you doing in Glasgow?
Oh, you didn't spend much time inside. You would certainly go down the park, play a game of football or soccer, as you guys say.
No, football's fine here. We accept football.
Spent a lot of time doing that. But really just being out the house as much as you can and riding your bike or whatever it took to kind of entertain yourself.
Friend's house and come on to the park.
Yeah. Even then, that was limited. Most parents didn't want a bunch of children running around their house making a mess.
Right.
True. Very true.
So you grow up there and you are in your equivalency of high school. You have your high school there. And as you go through high school, did you begin to form any ideas about what you're going to do after high school?
No, I was very much in the moment, just trying to get through school.
I see.
One day, 1 week at a time.
80s, graduate late 80s maybe? Or
yes.
80s? Okay,
yes.
There you go.
Yeah. And you were getting through school, you make it sound like it was a struggle. Was it a struggle for you?
No. I mean, I quite enjoy you enjoy school as much as you can.
As you can, yes. Okay. Yeah.
Very fortunate. A lot of the children I spent at primary school went to the same secondary school as me, so it wasn't a huge transition.
And what happened after high school?
So graduated, found some wee jobs that I thought interested me. Then the opportunity to move to America came up, and my parents were insightful enough to take that.
So your parents moved here and you moved with them?
Yes.
Okay. And so what age were you when that happened?
Probably early 20s.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And your brother as well, I assume?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He's a few years older. So.
And so they took the opportunity to come here. Now you're in the States.
Where did we land?
Initially New York. We had some family there. So it's always, that's kind of where you gravitate toward.
Right.
Some family. And then my parents had some close friends that they grew up with living in Newport Richie. So.
A little better climate.
Yeah.
Different than both Scotland and New York. Yeah. So now you're in the States. What I always find people who come here from who migrate from other countries. I always find that very interesting. How they initially.
What was the impetus, right?
I know that you're getting information in Scotland about America and American television and movies and things like that. But my point is, what is that? Is it kind of a shock, or is it a fairly easy transition? How did you see all that?
I didn't really find. I mean, you obviously get homesick, right? Things that you grew up with is second nature.
Your pals.
Yeah. Coming here, and you've got to kind of restart that process, right?
Well, the haggis here is not very good.
I don't know that it's even good in Scotland.
Now we're off to a good start.
But yeah, just having to restart that whole process of, okay, now you have to kind of identify people you connect with similar interests, or even some attitudes.
Right. You got to find your tribe, as they say.
Yeah. Do some of their ideologies align with yours? Do they kind of have the same kind of worldview, that kind of thing?
Empathetic, like you, sensibilities.
But it did make it easier that you speak, English, right? I could only imagine moving to a foreign country and then you've got to still learn a
language,
language, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It must be daunting. So I always appreciate my friends who come here from other cultures that don't speak English. I think to myself, wow, what a task to take on. And English is not so easy, by the way. So now you're
grammatically
in
speaking, Joey, it's impossible. The grammatics is impossible.
Right. Now you're in Florida, and then what happens next?
So I was going back and forth for a wee while, just having a little bit of a challenge, getting fully acclimated. You always
kept running back to that touchstone.
Yeah.
This is comfortable. This is not. This is comfortable.
Make sure it's still there.
Right.
But life goes on. Other people are going through their own life changes where you originate from. So it's not exactly as it remained when you left. But then went to University of South Florida.
Oh, okay. Go Bulls.
Yeah.
There you go. My alma mater. There we go.
Yeah. Got my degree. Then I went on to get my master's. Always kind of knew I wanted to kind of work in a helping field, and then from there I've been involved in behavioural health. For the last few decades, I'm aging myself a little bit.
Yeah. So your degree, you did your bachelor's, and then you did your master's in
mental health counseling.
Mental health counseling. Okay, excellent. And so does that would make you an MSW?
LMHC.
LMHC. Very good. What does that stand for?
Licensed mental health counselor.
There we go. All right.
If you'd have thought about it for a minute, Joey, you might have figured it out.
Well, no, I wanted him to,
of course,
share it with our friends. So, so now you come out of school with a degree in counseling, and how does that start getting applied? What are your first jobs like? What happens?
I had worked with a community mental health agency right out of school, because typically you'll get some intern hours there. You can kind of recognize what they're doing for your community. Some of the less fortunate. I do believe healthcare should be accessible to everyone, right?
Absolutely.
Preaching to the proverbial choir.
Well,
of course. No.
I know some people have their own perceptions of it, but I do believe, certain things, certain basic necessities should be accessible to everyone, right?
Of course.
But got involved in that, enjoyed it. Worked with children and families primarily, and then just kind of continued from there. As different opportunities opened up, I would take them and
grow and learn.
Try and learn something new,
right?
Or have people teach me something new.
And let's just for a moment backtrack slightly. When you said I knew that I wanted to do degree work in some field in which I would
helpful
be
work,
helping people or serving people. Just talk a little bit about your feelings about that. I mean, why is it one person is in that position and says, I want to go on and get my MBA and become a businessman or a businesswoman? Why is it some people say, I want to help people? What do you think that was about?
That's a great question. I think for me, my mother, she was a nurse. So, she would work in a cancer hospital and come home and tell you some stories and, how some folks had access to their families, how some folks didn't. And I was just like, there's something kind of rewarding about helping someone.
Yes. Okay. And I so get that. And
the light came on.
Yeah. So you kind of put it at your mother's feet, that she's the one that kind of brought you to that.
My dad was in construction. He helped people with other things.
Right.
People are generally pretty happy when things are working properly in their house.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah. So now you're doing counseling work for agencies, particularly as you come out of with your degree.
Yes. And then I'm currently at IBIS Healthcare, formerly known as Grace Point.
Very good.
Have been in the community about 70 years. They have been
Talk a little bit about that. That's wonderful. Talk a little bit about
Yeah.
your
Yeah, tell
your
us more
present
about
employer.
Grace Point for the audience.
Yeah, Grace Point has a large continuum of care from child services all the way up to supportive housing, for adults. On our campus, we have traditional outpatient services for counselling and psychiatry. We have inpatient service for crisis services for adults and children. I currently oversee the child side of IBIS Healthcare. So all the children's programs fall under me. And what else? We have some community-based services where they'll go in the home and meet with the families and the children. And we have some school-based counselling services.
And people don't realize until they're in the thick of it just how important these services are. And you don't know until you need them, really.
Oh, yeah.
Until somebody introduces the concept of, there's help for that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, these aren't the kind of dinner table topics, right?
Right.
Your mental health isn't really a fashionable topic.
It's almost taboo in our culture,
Yeah.
And I don't know around the world, globally speaking, but certainly here, we kind of tend to sweep that under the carpet. We kind of tend to not bring that up and talk about it, which is a travesty because, as we all found out this week, there are things that you really should discuss and not bury deep in your soul and your spirit, because eventually it's going to affect you. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents. I just dropped it in there. What say you, counselor?
Yeah, I think that you are addressing an issue that's very important to all of us, and we're going through a quandary of how we deal with physical health in America, in the fact that our medical life has been taken over by corporations, and there's that aspect. Healthcare certainly should be something that we should be providing for everyone, in my opinion. But then there is mental health care, and there's a whole series of this is getting deep quick, I guess, but complex issues.
We only have an hour, Joey. Let's get deep quick.
Yeah.
A lot of
complex issues having to deal with how our culture and our society sees mental health. What would be your comment about that?
I would absolutely agree. I think for some folks, it's more acceptable to say, hey, I have, and I'm just picking an illness like diabetes, right? People could talk to you about that all day, right?
Prevalent in our culture.
Right. And somewhat easy to talk about at any time. But talking to someone about how they are functioning emotionally, right? Because there's a synergy, right, between your mental health and your physical health. But yeah, it's something that I think people shy away from because of some of the unknowns, right? Oh, if I say the wrong thing, will this happen?
Right.
Will that make it worse? And, I think the more you talk about it, the more familiar people become with it, the more you will check in with each other and how you're actually doing. And not just a superficial check-in.
No, an actual heart-to-heart check-in.
Yeah, because I think there's some automated responses, right? If you were to ask folks, hey, when someone asks you how you're doing, right, does that other person actually stop, or are they just kind of gliding on by, hoping you'll give them an automated response?
I like to, Derek, when somebody says that, I like to just confound them and confuse them completely and start to go into a real serious response. Like, well, I'm glad you asked because, this and that and the other thing, and it just gets serious real quick because then you realize they're out of earshot already. They don't even hear you. It's perfunctory.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Instead of, hey, how are you? How are you? Things going okay with you?
Yes.
What's up with you? What's going on?
Yeah.
Fill me in.
Yeah, it's very customer service kind of response, right?
And pretty soon it's going to be AI response, and that's the scariest part of all.
Absolutely. So that's probably associated with a whole lot of cultural things that we inherit. But one of them is shame, isn't it?
I would think so. There's this, oh my goodness, don't tell anybody that you're not doing well emotionally.
Right.
You'll be, seen as vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be used against me?
Mm-hmm.
But there's this whole idea of you want to remove that stigma, right? There's plenty of high functioning folks that operate in our daily lives that have what we could call some mental health diagnosis or mental health symptoms.
Some depression, some schizophrenia, there's different things.
All kinds of things.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything's possible, right?
Yeah. And why is it okay not to have such a great day physically, right? Oh,
my back hurts. My back hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, hey, I can't have a great day emotionally.
Right.
Right. Absolutely.
Which one is even more important than the other if you think about it, because people might not see your sciatic nerve flaring up, but they're definitely going to see that look in your eye when you're distant or you're maybe nonverbal or you just look sad today. Mm-hmm. And those are things that people can see and recognize, but we don't talk about it in our culture. And that's what we're kind of doing today. And we're so grateful that Derek McCarron has taken up his valuable and important time to share with us some of his thoughts on mental wellness and its effect on the community writ large, right?
Absolutely.
And how we should all be kind of checking in on each other. We've been going through a lot, not just personally, those of us in our Tampa, extended Tampa family with those three gentlemen that we mentioned earlier.
Yes.
I mean, people leave us every day, and we experience loss every day in different ways. But today we have Derek McCarron with us, and we're going to do our little station ID a little bit early now, and then we're going to come back, open up the phone lines. We're certainly going to get a little deeper into the conversation, and stay with us because we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Alfred Goldberg, and you're listening to The Conversation with Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter on WMNF 88.5 FM here in Tampa.
Support for WMNF comes from listeners like you and WEDU PBS. You can watch a special tribute to Rob Lori, one of WMNF's founders and long-term news and public affairs director. This Friday, August 29th at 8:30 p.m., WEDU will air a special episode of Florida This Week, celebrating the life and legacy of Rob Lori. Learn more at wedu.org.
The great Rob Lori.
Yes, there we go.
So thank you all for listening. I'll go ahead and give you the phone numbers now. If you'd like to call, ask a question, or you just want to make a comment, this will be the way to contact us. We have Jessica's doing double duty today, our producer and engineer. She's going to be answering the calls as well as your emails. So we've got Joe in there. Joe is in there. Joe Remo's in there. Thanks.
Joe Remo's going
to forget what I just said. Disregard that completely. Joe is at the ready. He's going to take your calls. If you'd like to call in, it's 813-239-9663. You can send us a text at 813-433-0885. Emails are always welcome, and Jessica will read those. DJ at WMNF.org.
Captain Remo is on the phones.
There he is.
Right? Just like Captain Nemo, Captain Remo.
We like that.
So since we were on that spot, let's pursue it a little further, if we could, Derek. Anybody that grew up in this country, certainly the way I grew up, there's a long history in our families that go back to those early days, those puritanical days in America. And all that stuff, as you know, because this is your field, it's generational and cyclically passed on. And there's this kind of like staunch personality that must
Stiff
not,
upper lip.
must severe, and we must persevere, and we must do this, and you can't share your feelings, and it's very much like the kind of rugged individual John Wayne, take it on the chin. I don't want to appear weak. All those things are tied together, and I know certainly in my family, my mother talked more about her emotions than my grandmother. And I presume my grandmother talked more about her emotions than her mother. I mean, with each generation, we've loosened a little. But it was not long ago where your emotional state just was not important to the conversation in any setting.
Yeah, I think, some things can be gender related as well, right? There's a very different kind of approach from men versus maybe ladies.
Yes.
Ladies are far more communicative. I think I said that properly, right?
Yeah.
They're more apt to share.
Yeah. Whereas I think growing up, maybe even, for me as a young man, hey, get through it, right? Whatever it takes, get through it, but I don't want to talk about it.
Right.
And then there's some of your religious beliefs, right? Some people are intensely private and things you would only share with your priest or your pastor or your deacon or things like that. But, the bottom line was don't show anybody that you're feeling vulnerable.
Right. Weakness.
Yeah, somehow that would be held against you, right?
Right. And in fact, the only real pathway to mental health is to share.
Well, it's one of
It's one of the primary.
most readily available.
That's right.
Reach out.
Yeah,
If you need help, reach out.
You chat with people and you find that folks tend to be isolated or a bit, even identify themselves as being lonely. It's something that is correctable, but it's about maintaining valued relationships, right? Not just any relationship, but maintaining a valued relationship.
If we need help moving a piece of furniture, or we need help because we ran out of sugar, we need a cup of sugar, we think nothing of going to our neighbor if we're friendly enough and asking them for that help. But if you're having a moment where you're just not well, you don't go and you ask your neighbor for, listen, man, can I tell you something? Because I'm not feeling well, I'm not doing well. Would you mind giving me a few minutes of your time? We don't ever do that.
Right.
We don't, because I guess we don't want to burden somebody with our feelings, but it's deeper than that.
It's complex.
Yeah.
It really is. You think there's some folks that are so intensely private, even the thought of that would just make them shut down even more, right? But in the event of they do reach out, it's really a primary function of not being judgmental, right? They may not be coming to you because they think you have all the answers, but they need a forum to discuss.
A sounding board, right?
Yeah,
Right.
to discuss what they have going on. And sometimes, like we just shared, just chatting with someone, that, just the value that brings, you can't quantify it,
Right. Yeah.
We shared for those that are listening now, and we see your callers there, so we're going to get to you in just a couple of minutes. Before we went on the air, we don't delve too deeply into conversation with our guests because we want everything to come out sort of organically. But we did want to give Derek, as we were just meeting him today, a little bit about our histories, Joe's and myself.
Right.
So that's what you're alluding to, that, even in casual conversation, you can tell somebody a little bit about your childhood or the things that you did when you were a kid that really just brought life to you and a smile to you. And that's sharing. That's valuable. And that's, we talk about this on the show quite often. We are disconnecting from each other, Derek, as technology continues to progress. We talk about it. The 4-foot chain link fence was good enough for us when we were growing up, and I'm sure in Glasgow the same. You could see your neighbor, you could talk to your neighbor, and now it's a 6-foot privacy fence, and don't you dare stick your nose over that fence and look in on me. What's your problem? So we are, and with all of our appliances and our information technology, we're just disconnecting. And I don't think that's good for society at large. Comment on that.
Well, obviously I work with children, and almost all of them have cell phones now. They're more readily available to text each other, so like as we have, we're a little older, we've had to learn new technology and unlearn it,
which is difficult at times as you get older.
For you guys, it might have been learning the typewriter.
I guess what he's saying, Derek, is that wait a minute.
But there's these opportunities in our life where, we're kind of unique in that we grew up with probably the largest amount of changes technology-wise. Because, for us, you guys remember you used to have a telephone on a cord and you were excited if the cord...
Quite a long cord, if I recall.
Could go in a different room, right?
Sure.
But, with the children, they're being, just inundated with all these new opportunities to communicate, and not always locally, right? People can be anywhere in the world, right? But I don't know if the last time you guys went out to eat and just observed a restaurant.
Six people at the table, 6 people head down.
Yeah,
nobody's talking.
It's amazing to me,
Any waiting room in any doctor's office.
Yeah.
And it's almost like there's this, if I don't look busy, I must not be important, right? Or I just want to stay in my own little bubble and only...
Blinders on.
Only read things that are interesting to me.
Well, it's very safe, right?
Yeah. But it's very interesting because my daughter's 14, and social media I think has a lot of pros, but definitely a lot of cons, especially if someone's not emotionally mature enough to kind of put things in perspective.
Absolutely.
But for our children learning to communicate right now, I mean, the art of conversation is it's getting lost.
Yes,
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
But I do think there's an opportunity to learn from people when you engage in them in conversation.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think the only good thing, and I'm looking at this from the doctor's point of view, and vis-a-vis the waiting room, is that he has no magazine subscriptions whatsoever because he doesn't need to have them on the table anymore because everybody's got their device in their hands.
Right.
So that's the only good thing. Well, then put the coffee maker in there because, if you're not going to have magazines, you better have some coffee. Caller, we see you there. We're going to go to you at this point in time. David in Pinellas Park, if you have a question or a comment, we'd love to hear it. Hi, David.
Hello. I was just had an opinion about I think, a big part of what the future is going to see is a lot of problems with what cell phones do to a child and a child's learning, how a child learns, and the actual damage it's doing because of the actual drugs it produces in your brain. As far as it's putting your brain on an emotional roller coaster. Learning like that, you can know everything on your cell phone, but take it away and you haven't learned anything. You can, and
that's correct.
The process of learning that you're not getting when you're learning from a cell phone, because you're learning so much information so quickly and so easily. You're not creating that pathway to your brain that you're actually can register it and remember.
And the filters aren't properly developed yet, so you're getting information that maybe, as Derek alluded to earlier, you're not prepared to be exposed to. Thank you so much, David,
Thanks,
for your
David.
call.
By the way, David, that's a great point.
Any help? Are you okay? There's an accident right here. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, my goodness. Please go take care of that. Thank you so much, David. And we'll let Derek weigh.
David makes a great point. Let me just say, I hope whatever that accident
was an accident.
Yeah.
Live radio.
I'm not a neurologist, but I can tell you that the learning process of information by using cell phones as a backup for all information. When I was a kid, how many phone numbers did you have to memorize when you were a kid?
Several many.
Yeah,
still know them.
I guarantee you
still
that
kind of know them.
Any 12-year-old today doesn't know a single phone number. They don't know their own
phone number.
Right.
That's right.
And that's because they don't have to learn it. And that is a small example of what's happening at multiple levels.
The neural pathways are being either truncated or not developed at all. Speak a little bit to that, because you do your primary work is with children.
Yeah, the instant gratification, right? Of, hey, I need to look something up. Let me type in a few keywords.
Ask Siri.
Even the art of hey, you used to have to go to the library and, read some books and really kind of do some detective work.
Dewey Decimal System. What are you talking about?
To find information.
Yeah.
That actually was a skill, right? Because you had to remain focused. You had to stay on task. Well, I just see a dramatic decrease in, one, attention to detail and focus. It's like if I can't get it right now, so their frustration levels get elevated, irritability gets elevated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like they are full on entertain me, these devices, right? Like I cannot go a moment in my day without some sort of immediate entertainment, whether it's music, whether it's, social media, whether it's YouTube, whatever it is.
Right.
I'm a little bit more functional with the reason I kind of look things up, but I have a purpose, right?
Of course,
Right.
of course.
Right.
The children I work with will often educate me on what they're doing socially. I'm old, I'm behind the times, I can't keep up.
However, it's got to be those that can survive in that environment, the children I'm referring to, they're awful nimble and they're awful quick in their, they don't have the connection to the longevity of staying with the task and seeing it through to fruition and then realizing, wow, that took me 3 days, but look at the result. And all of a sudden, if they can solve it in 3 minutes, they're on to the next thing. So I don't know how to balance that necessarily, but I will tell you this, that 7 and 8 year olds are going to be writing code here before too much longer, because if as a 24-month-old little being, you're already holding a device and using your thumbs to manipulate it. What is when you're 10? Where are you?
But what
be?
enters that conversation is AI, and will they be writing code? They won't need to write code because AI
is
will
another.
write the code.
AI is
That's
another conversation.
world. But
that's
let me
another
ask you-
show for you, Derek, to come in to
That's right,
speak to
that's
us
right.
about.
Let me ask you also, Derek, about you're talking about specifically while we're on phones and devices. You talked about the lowering of their attention span. Also, address what you're seeing in terms of the social aspect of likes, always getting likes.
That's that gratitude, that instant gratitude you're referring to.
And you have to remember, these are complete strangers a lot of the time, right? Most of the folks you have in your life that you value your relationship with would probably give you more reinforcement for positive behavior than any sort of likes.
Right.
But we will see children going through an extreme duress because they posted something and no one appreciated it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys remember, but when you were wee boys, if you built something with Lego or something, your family, oh, you're brilliant, that's amazing, right? Think about how you felt when you got that.
Ask Joey about his artwork when he was a little kid. We don't have time.
No, when I was a wee boy.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, Derek.
But the idea of they're looking for that same sort of reinforcement.
Yes.
From folks that they've got no intention of reinforcing what you're putting out there for whatever reason, right? I don't understand some of the responses some of the children get. I'm like,
Right.
What was the purpose of?
Well, not only that, but children in their directness and their not in full control yet of their emotions can be very mean and critical, and you're just a big nothing.
Yep.
And imagine that you are feeding into that. That would be intense for me. At least when I was a kid, the bully was somebody I physically knew.
So that's something that's really interesting, right? Anybody that ever got picked on, right? If you were at school and it was happening at school, it typically ended right there at the school boundary, right? And then you went back to your wee area that you lived in and surrounded by the people in your local area that all knew you and grew up with you and wouldn't let anybody kind of bother you, right? Well, now there's no boundaries. Whether your child's in their room, that they can still be influenced by,
somebody halfway around
media.
the world. Somebody halfway around the world.
Yeah, the sole intention is to maybe cause a bit of misery, right? For whatever reason, whatever motivation they have.
Right.
Joy, can I ask
go ahead.
a quick question? Because, and Derek, you came in prepared. I mean, we have a saying, loaded for bear. I mean, I'll probably say it in Glasgow too. Loaded for polar bear. I don't know what you're loaded for over there. But you came in with copious notes and ready to speak on different topics. Before we get to loss, and I want to talk about loss, and maybe you can share with us some of your sentiment on loss as kids relate to loss. And of course, what are we but big kids? And in some cases, there are children still inside of us that come out every once in a while for yearning for attention in different ways. That never leaves us. As we get old, it just stays with us. But is there anything in your notes that you really wanted to make sure that you expressed today while you have your notes in front of you? Or are you comfortable just continuing to ride this ride with us?
Well, this is your show. I'm just...
You're just a passenger on this flight.
I got a ticket for the front row seat.
There you
go. I like that. That's well
spoken
said.
like a therapist. It's your show. So
yeah, it's your world, boys. I'm just living in it.
You are working now chiefly with families and children. Almost
children.
And when you say children, are there age groups that you're working in, or is it all children?
5 through 17.
5 through 17.
So even young
that's
adults.
Broad, yeah. And what are these things that we've been touching on? These are the things you're seeing. Is there any particular thing you're seeing that's that might
troubling
be troubling to you, or might be a surprise to us? I
mean, I've certainly seen an increase in generalized anxiety and depression. I do think sometimes the intense world in which your children are being inundated with information, whether it be on their free time or at school, as you guys kind of hinted, sometimes the access to information can make things go a little quicker. But with that comes, we expect more. If you can get these tasks done timely, we expect
how much more are you going to cram in that 24?
Right. Or the whole idea of, sometimes the cell phones or the internet becomes a great babysitter, right? So if we're asking our kids to develop skill sets, where are they learning those skill sets, right? Well, what's right in front of them? So maybe for us growing up, the television was a great babysitter, right? But there was limited shows on then, right? But now it's like access with streaming services, with the internet, all of that. There's just continuous access to all sorts of programming, right?
It didn't seem like in the early days, Joey, because Joey and I are part of that television generation, that even though we saw Wile E. Coyote have his head handed to him on a weekly basis, we didn't go outside and try to build an Acme bomb and blow something up. We just laughed and giggled and kept going. I think a lot of that innocence that we experienced in that sweet childhood innocence, the kids today don't experience that. I mean, we didn't have stress when we were kids. Really, I mean, what was the most stressful thing that could happen to us? We had a flat tire on our bicycle. Now we had to figure out either going to get towed with a friend of yours, or you got to go fix your tire if you're going to get around.
Well, you might have had stress in your home. There might have been abuse in your home.
Correct.
But likely you were not receiving a lot of stress from the environment.
Outside, yes, outside.
Yeah. That's what I hear you saying.
No, of course.
Yeah.
And I do think it's that continuous exposure to kind of a stress-induced environment that causes some of these heightened feelings of anxiety, worry, even depression, because as we were saying...
That cortisol is constantly being dumped into the system.
Connectedness, having that just human contact with someone that values you, just goes a long, long way. It really does.
Derek, did you notice when you walked into the studio today and you met us for the first time, and what a pleasure it is having you and meeting you today, that we all greeted each other with a hug?
Yeah.
Because we need that.
Yeah,
as people, you need that tactile. Yeah, you need that tactile.
Well, also, too, I think that now they're finding out with all of these elaborate... I'm always fascinated by studies, and how is that study done, and what is the criteria, and what is the veracity, and what is the strength and credibility of that study. But they're finding out as... I'm interested in lifespan, because I'm getting closer to the end. And so, so there's all this stuff about, are you eating vegetables? Are you doing this? Are you exercising? They're finding out that people that that one of the factors that contributes to longevity is people who in their senior years have a community or have friends or have connections. It's the isolated person that literally has a physical impact on them that's negative.
So I don't know if you guys have Netflix, but they did a great show on the blue zones around the world.
Yes.
Saw that.
You're right.
Pretty spectacular.
And just the commonality.
Pretty spectacular.
Joe, is they formed these like little older corporations,
little pods,
right,
little enclaves.
That's right.
Where they'll support each other through thick and thin. You know, if someone's in the hospital, they would all take turns at going to visit. And, you know, if someone needed their garden tended to, they would take turns to help them with their garden or whatever it may be.
It was very uplifting.
It really was interesting. And it was all over the world, right?
Yep.
There wasn't...
And there was Italy, there was Japan, there was different parts of the world, different zones, Mexico, but it was the same overarching connectivity and concern that kept these people together.
Absolutely. So do you find, your work with children, young people, I guess I should say, making friendships is, in this environment you're describing, I presume, more difficult?
I would certainly say... it hasn't been as organic as maybe years past, right? Because there's not that, hey, you have to go outside the house to go meet your friends, right? Because you didn't really have a whole lot of other options.
There were no other options.
You know,
open the window and yell outside the window.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there was this idea of you knew where people were going to be because there was a consistency to it, right? The numbers would vary, but inevitably someone would be at one of these kind of meeting points, right?
Right.
But, you know, you think about it now, there's such someone mentioned something about fences earlier. I mean, there's really a reluctance to let your child go outside unattended.
Yes.
And I get why, right? I mean, we've kind of been inundated with all these kind of horror stories, right, of children being abducted more recently, you know, child sex trafficking, things like that, right? So it's, you know, so some of these concerns are valid, right? But the opportunity for it just to kind of happen organically are getting reduced. I mean, I even look at organized sports. I mean, I drive my daughter to her soccer practice, right? When I grew up, you had to make your own way there, right?
Right.
But you think about it, everything they do, if they want to do it socially with their friends, you got to call the other parent.
Right.
Someone's got to stay and keep a wee eye on them, right? It's very controlled and orchestrated, and you know you're going to decide who's a favourable person to let them spend time with. So they don't really get that opportunity to let me decide who my friends are going to be.
Interesting.
You know, let me decide who's got good qualities that I like and I align
Building
with.
those life skills.
Yeah, you know, it kind of sift through people and say, I really, really connect with this person, not so much, you know.
So before, and this, we knew this was going to happen, Derek, because there's so much that we wanted to cover with you. An hour is not going to do it any justice, but in the last 10 minutes or so that we have left, how do children respond to loss? As we started the show today talking about profound loss that we're all still holding, and speak to the children's reaction to it, and maybe that'll seep into the children in our hearts and how we could benefit from it.
And also maybe what is your role in that as someone who's helping them?
Facilitator, yeah.
So for children, obviously, based on the relationship they have with that person, right? Obviously, the more value that person has in their life, right, whether it be a grandparent, a parent, you know, you got to think about this. You know, if it's already difficult for the adults in their world to talk about grief and, you know, the death of an important family member or a death of the important person in the community that had a significant impact in their life, we haven't really given them a whole lot of tools because we're not willing to kind of mentor, you know, some of those skills. It's really kind of alarming for children, right? And I'm trying to put that in kind of moderate terms, right? But, you know, the fact that it's still got a lot of mystery behind it, right? Where universally, everyone's going to experience loss, right? It's the one inevitable thing, right? So when you're talking about a child, depending on what that person meant to them, how much of a teacher that was to that child, right, that individual, and what skill sets they gave them as they spent time with them, you know, the impact can really cross a huge spectrum from, you know, hey, we don't really talk about how long they should be given to kind of grieve and mourn and kind of work through that process, because life goes on, right? That's a scary thing for children. Like, they're going through this really, really massive event in their life, and, you know, they're just looking to kind of pause things for a minute to catch their breath, but yet everything around them just keeps moving.
Advances.
Yeah, keeps moving. And you know, it's this idea of, well, why is it not important to everybody else? Why is it so important just to me, right?
Which means I'm more alone.
Think about
Isolated,
that, right?
in my grief.
And then the people they may want to reach out with, their closest friends, right? Or maybe the family member that was their go-to is the one that's died, right?
That's got to be horrible.
Right. So you're thinking their one support system, their one rock
It's not there.
is not there,
Wow.
right? And they weren't thinking about a backup plan, right? Who's plan B if they're not here, right?
As we have been saying all along, because of the loss of our dear friend Andy Hughes, we alluded to at the top, he has no understudy. There was no next man up mentality where this was concerned. He was one of one in a lot of ways, Derek.
Right.
So it's like, and now who's going to do that work?
And is anger a typical response? Is there?
Oh, absolutely. And I think people's level of anger varies, right? This is about, okay, how was I taught to kind of manage my emotions, right? My emotional regulations. But I think the worst thing you can do is not acknowledge it, right? Like, just not talk about it.
You can't do that.
Right. Because, you know, I think grief is a way to kind of express your love for someone, you know, how much they meant to you.
Of course.
But everybody's got different tolerance levels for how they're going to express that, right?
Right.
And I think what often gets missed is just that journey and what it takes for someone. And they might never ever fully resolve grief, but they're going to kind of work through a process of how do I manage it, right? Because as you were mentioned, Joe, you know, anger, you know, irritability, we forget there's a whole slew of kind of just lesser emotions, right, than anger. And that's what your goal is, right? How do I have a less intense emotion as I'm working through this?
Right. You know, my image of this is very simple, is that having dealt with it many times, is that if you have an issue with mental health, if you don't address it and you bury it, I use the physical example of you've eaten something that's toxic, and you, if I may, you need to vomit, and you need to express it. And if you don't, you're just going to get more sick. Eventually, you're going to...
Because it'll get buried deeper and deeper.
It's just not good.
Yeah.
And so that's how I see that. So the unfortunate situation in loss is that there's so few places to turn, and if others are uncomfortable, they're avoiding you. Right?
Think about that for a child, right? The children they see every day in school, most, if not all, will be like, I don't know what to say to them. Right. You know, I don't want to make it worse.
Right.
That fear of saying the wrong thing or behaving the wrong way.
That's where a well-placed and well-timed hug can just be the elixir that the soul needs at that very moment in time. We're almost up against that hard clock, but I want to say this. Is there any, if somebody out there listening wants to kind of have a conversation with you and follow up with you, where can they look to reach you? Oh,
they can look to reach me at IBIS Healthcare. We have several locations. Our closest one to your facility is 5707 North 22nd Street.
Close by, not too far away.
6 minutes away.
Beautiful.
6 minutes
We timed
away.
it out.
You know, we have child therapists, you know, we have psychiatrists, we have adult therapists, that will work with adults. There's also, you know, national crisis hotlines for folks as well.
There's something very calming and very soothing about your voice, not just the accent, which is lovely, but there's something very steady about your explanation of things. And we are just so grateful that you came in today to just give us a taste, because we know there's so much more that you can offer our community. And we would hope that if we extend the invitation to come back, would you join us again?
Yes, absolutely. You called me with plenty of notice. I could clear some things off.
I will, because we know just how busy you are.
Yeah, I'd say
Derek McCarran.
your skill set, Derek, is it's obvious that you know how to make someone feel comfortable, and that's a great gift.
It's a gift. Joey, what's happening next here at WMNF?
Well, as always, special thanks to Jessica, the OG of the board. Without her, we wouldn't be doing it. And
Joe Remo?
And Captain Remo.
Captain Remo, or Finding Remo, as it were.
And Finding Remo is answering the phones. And then coming up next is we have Music Wednesday with Sam I Am. And there it is.
Thank you for that, Joey. And again, thank you very, very much to Derek McCarran for joining us today.
Thank you, Derek.
Alfredo Goldberg for giving us the lead in finding you, because you've provided us with some great insight today. Thank you all for listening. As always, we hope to see you again on the radio, as they say, next Wednesday at noon, 12:01 to be exact. This is WMNF Tampa, and this is The Conversation.